Chapter 1. The Glitching Patch. Rain tapped rhythmically against the window pane, the glass gleaming with the diffused light from the street lamp outside. Inside, the room was a familiar sanctuary of a dedicated gamer. Mugs with stale coffee dregs, notebooks haphazardly filled with game build notes, and a worn mousepad emblazoned with the Nightblades Guild crest. The desk was a battlefield of technology, a clattering mechanical keyboard, twin monitors casting a soft glow, headphones with the microphone silently flipped up, and an RGB-lit mouse. On the wall, a cherished poster of the classic Warcraft 3 hung as a testament to past gaming glories. At the heart of this digital haven sat Mike, 28 years old, clad in a comfortable t-shirt and sweatpants. His gaze was intensely focused, his lips pressed into a tight line as he scrutinized the screens before him. On one monitor, lines of code scrolled endlessly down an installation terminal. On the other, a vibrant logo for a new game, Ilmor Gates Alpha 0.9, glowed, with the small, almost ominous disclaimer beneath it, "Test build. Use at your own risk." Mike stretched, a dull crack echoing from his neck. He muttered to himself, his voice a low rumble. "Well, let's see what mess you've made. Just hope it doesn't crash like last time." With a decisive click, he pressed the large Connect button. For a moment, nothing happened. A fleeting silence that stretched. Then, the screen began to flicker, a slow, ominous pulse. The whirring of his PC's cooler intensified, growing louder, almost a whine. Mike initially assumed it was just the game loading, but a cold knot formed in his stomach. Something felt profoundly wrong. The game interface glitched, stuttering as if caught in an unbearable lag. His cursor vanished, and a low, strange squeal, like static white noise, filled his headphones. Mike frowned, a ripple of unease crossing his face. "What the?" he whispered. At that very instant, a blinding flash of white light erupted from the monitor. It was sharp, searing, a painful assault on his eyes. He recoiled instinctively, but before he could even push back from his desk, everything around him began to vibrate, as if reality itself was seizing up, glitching like a frozen computer program. The room, his desk, every object within it seemed to pixelate, to distort, and then, impossibly, to disintegrate. Then, everything went dark before his eyes. A profound silence descended, heavy and absolute. Chapter 2. Welcome to Ilmor. In a foggy forest, sound slowly began to return. First, a faint ethereal wind whispered through unseen branches. Then came the intricate, almost melodic singing of fantastic alien birds, followed by the gentle rustling of unseen leaves. The perspective seemed to lower, settling upon Mike, who lay motionless on the damp ground. He slowly opened his eyes. Above him, a dense canopy of ancient, unfamiliar trees formed a living roof. The light filtering through was soft, diffused, as if woven by magic itself. He pushed himself up, the ground feeling strangely firm beneath him. The first thing he noticed was his own body. It felt different. Instead of the familiar t-shirt he'd been wearing, he was now clad in perfectly fitted leather armor. His hand, once bare, was encased in a metallic gauntlet, a small glowing crystal embedded in its back. Over his shoulders, on his back, rested two enchanted sabers, blades that seemed to be a fusion of elven elegance and the robust design of Draenei weaponry. He looked at his palms, turning them over. His skin seemed to possess a faint luminosity, and his movements felt unnaturally precise, as if he now inhabited the very body of a game character. "Is this a helmet? VR?" Mike mumbled, a panicked thought quickly overshadowed by a strange calm. He looked around, taking in the impossible scenery. This definitely isn't my computer's graphics. Suddenly, an interface shimmered into existence before his eyes, seemingly projected directly into his vision. A health bar, 80 out of 100. A skill panel at the bottom displaying quick tips like Q, Shadow Dash, and E, Blade Vortex. A mini-map in the top right corner, and text in the bottom left corner. Roll, damage, DPS. He stepped back, but the transparent interface remained, moving with his gaze. Everything felt undeniably real. Then a mechanical, disembodied voice resonated directly in his ears. "Welcome to Ilmor, Borderlander. Initialization protocol complete." Mike responded, "Borderlander? Who? What?" Looking up at the vast, unfamiliar sky, he called out, "Hey! Who's speaking?" At that precise moment, the nearby bushes rustled violently, and a hooded figure emerged. Dressed like a scout, the figure let out a visible sigh of relief. Above his head, a name glowed faintly: Kale. "Found him! Quick! You're a damage dealer, right? Our raid is already on the summoning phase. The Mother of Shadows is on the verge of awakening. Let's go! The portal will collapse soon," Kale exclaimed, his voice urgent. Mike tried to interject, "Wait, what raid? I'm actually—" Kale cut him off. "We'll discuss it on the way." He grabbed Mike's arm, and Mike instantly felt a powerful, disorienting pull in his chest, as if he were being sucked into an unseen vortex. Everything blurred, distorted space stretched and pulled them both into its strange embrace. Within an interdimensional portal, they hurtled through a dizzying tunnel, fragments of game interfaces, snippets of NPC dialogues, distant cries of other players and the booming commands of raid leaders flashing past them. Fleeting glimpses of a monstrous boss appeared and vanished. He heard shouts like, "Phase 2 begins! Don't stand in AoE! Buffs on the tank!" Mike heard it all, a cacophony of sound that felt eerily familiar, like forgotten dreams or distant memories of past games. But now it was all intensely real. He felt the heat, the crushing pressure, even a sharp, stinging pain in his chest from the overwhelming sensory input. A system voice announced clearly, "Raid location loading. Dungeon, Shadow Pit." Then, everything went dark. Chapter 3. The Raid Begins. A dull, heavy sound of footsteps on stone echoed through the gigantic hall, its ceiling lost in oppressive darkness. The walls were inscribed with ancient, unsettling symbols, the floor strewn with glowing runes that pulsed faintly. The atmosphere was heavy, pressing down on his shoulders thick as fog before a storm. The steady drip of water was heard from somewhere unseen, like a slow, deliberate countdown before an inevitable battle. Before him was a gigantic arena, in the center of which rose a gruesome throne constructed of chitin and bone. On it sat the Mother of Shadows, a colossal creature with a spider-like lower body, a chillingly feminine torso, and many burning purple eyes that stared unblinking. Her immense claws dug into the very floor, and she breathed heavily, almost as if in a deep, menacing slumber. Along the walls, the raid gathered, over 20 dozen players. Some were dressed in gleaming, ornate armor, others in dark, flowing robes, their faces hidden by deep hoods. Above each of them, a shimmering display showed a name, level, and role. Tanks were massive, exuding an aura of unwavering confidence. Healers shone with a soft, comforting light. Damage dealers, like Mike, wielded an array of weapons, swords, bows, and various magical blades, each with distinctly different gear. Above Mike, the display read, "Borderlander, Damage, DPS." He felt his heart tremble, his legs momentarily feeling like cotton, but when he clenched the hilts of his blades, they responded with a pleasant pulse, as if awaiting his command. The raid leader approached, an imposing orc with a shield the size of a door. His name was Groshkar the Iron. Groshkar addressed the group. "All right, listen up, everyone. New damage dealer, this one with the lost gnome face." He pointed directly at Mike. "First phase, we work on the legs. Do not stand in the purple. Second phase, control the ads. Third, if we live, clear the dream sphere and hit the core." Mike whispered to himself, "Are these mechanics from a guide?" Groshkar shouted loudly, his voice echoing, "Take positions! Tanks, forward! Healers, ready!" Mike understood with a surge of adrenaline. It had begun. The background music shifted, growing more intense and ominous. An ancient bell struck with a deep, resonant chime. The boss awakened. The Mother of Shadows slowly opened her eyes, first one, then all 8 of them at once, each glowing with an infernal purple light. The entire hall filled with a thick, suffocating purple light. She emitted an inhuman, horrifying wheeze, a sound that scraped against the soul. "You have come into my dream, so you shall become part of it," the Mother of Shadows rasped, her voice a chilling whisper that filled the cavern. Shadows began to fall from the high ceiling, forming pulsating areas of destructive energy on the floor, known as AoE. The tanks rushed in first, drawing the boss's immediate attention and fury. A huge spiked claw crashed into the stone floor, leaving a smoking crater. "Right leg! DPS! Push!" Groshkar bellowed. Mike took a deep breath. The skill system before him lit up, ready for action. He activated Shadow Dash, and his body seemed to dissolve into thin air, reappearing instantaneously right next to the boss's immense leg. His blades flashed from their sheaths, beginning to gleam with a dark light. Strike, another strike, and the boss's colossal health bar slowly but steadily began to recede. Mike thought to himself, a mix of disbelief and exhilaration coursing through him. "It's actually working. I'm hitting, and it feels real." He felt the jarring recoil of each blow, as if he were truly cutting through solid rock. He felt the intense heat radiating from the boss's dark magic, and the sickening stench of its breath, a foul mixture of sulfur and decaying flesh. This was not a game. This was war. The boss suddenly raised its front paw, a massive limb poised to strike. "Wave! Wave! Get out!" Groshkar roared, his voice urgent. Mike noticed the floor beneath him beginning to glow with an ominous light. He remembered. The mechanic, a shadow wave. He needed to jump back. He instinctively pressed what felt like the spacebar, and in mid-jump, he used a spinning attack, pushing off the ground with a surge of energy. The wave of dark energy passed harmlessly beneath him, but struck 3 other players, flinging their characters violently into the air, their HP dropping almost to 0. One of them, a healer named Mirion the Light, screamed, "Healers, on me!" Healers immediately activated their spells, and a soft, comforting light briefly enveloped the arena, healing the wounded. Suddenly, Phase 2 began. The boss rose onto its hind legs. The floor beneath them gave way, crumbling to form several isolated platforms, with a swirling void stretching between them. "Your fears shall become my children," the Mother of Shadows declared, her voice echoing with a chilling new power. Ads burst from the shadows, small, grotesque spiders with disturbingly human faces. They scuttled directly towards the healers and casters in the raid. "DPS, to the ads! Splash them!" Groshkar commanded. Mike realized the task was on him. He jumped to an adjacent platform, using a combo attack that cleaved through 3 of the terrifying ads. One of them, however, managed to reach a healer. Mike dashed between them, taking a claw hit that sent a jolt of real pain through him. His HP dropped sharply to 35%. Gasping, he used a defensive cooldown to dash to the next group of enemies. His whole body ached, but the intensity of the battle, the raw sensation of combat, was becoming almost narcotic. "Good, Borderlander! Keep up the pace!" Groshkar yelled, his voice filled with approval. For the first time since he had arrived, Mike felt that he wasn't just a participant. He was truly needed. At this critical moment, the Mother of Shadows roared again, and a huge, ominous portal, seemingly sleepy yet pulsating with dark energy, opened in the very center of the arena. A shadow in the form of a mirrored boss clone burst from it. It immediately began to cast a horrifying sphere of dread. "Everyone to the center! Destroy the sphere before it charges!" Groshkar's voice boomed across the chamber. Mike took a deep, steadying breath. He leapt into the thick of the chaos, activating his ultimate ability, Dream Cleave. His blades began to emit a brilliant dark light, and his strikes became blindingly fast, a blur of motion. The sphere of dread cracked, then disintegrated into wisps of shadow. A profound silence descended, thick and sudden. The Mother of Shadows let out a guttural, earth-shattering scream. "This is impossible!" the Mother of Shadows shrieked, her voice filled with raw fury and disbelief. Her vast body trembled violently, and she began to transition into the third phase of the fight. But everything cut off. Chapter 4: The Price of Error. A hollow echo resonated through the ancient stone chamber. The space around him now felt like living darkness, oppressive and suffocating. The arena itself had begun to crumble. Stone ledges collapsed with deafening crashes, and thick dust formed an impenetrable wall in the air. Everything around them flickered with an angry crimson light. The Mother of Shadows had fully entered her third, most terrifying phase. She was no longer merely a spider-like creature, but an embodiment of nightmare itself. Grotesque protruding limbs, swirling, sucking portals on her form, and eyes pulsating with malevolent energy across her entire body. She hovered menacingly in the air, showering the remaining players with waves of agonizing pain and paralyzing fear. Bolts of shadow energy rained down from above. Groshkar bellowed, his voice raw with exertion. "Dream mechanic! Everyone in the circles! Circles!" Mike, panting, his hands throbbing with fresh wounds, darted desperately between the rapidly shrinking platforms. Glowing circles, designated safe zones, appeared on the crumbling ground. He jumped, straining to reach the correct one, but at the very last moment, he hesitated, distracted by an enemy ad casting a spell from the side. A fatal mistake. He did not step into the circle. A second later, a searing blast of dread washed over him. The interface before his eyes distorted violently. Sound became muffled, distant. His HP sharply plummeted to a terrifying 1. A deafening ringing filled his ears, and his heart seemed to seize in his chest. "I almost died. For good? This isn't just in-game damage anymore. This is pain." He collapsed to his knees, barely able to hold himself upright. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Miriam the Light, one of the healers, rushing towards him. She activated Light of Life, and a warm golden glow enveloped him, his health returning to half. Miriam chastised him, her voice sharp with urgency. "Next time, listen to commands. Everything here is real." The scene seemed to slow, the world taking on a surreal quality. Mike, breathing heavily, retreated behind a jagged stone outcrop, pressing himself against the cold, unforgiving wall. His whole body ached with a profound, bone-deep weariness, and his mind throbbed with the lingering echo of fear. He trembled uncontrollably. His hands were covered in what appeared to be blood, real, warm blood. He looked at his fingers, then at his saber. The blood disappeared, evaporating, game-like, but the agonizing sensations were undeniably real. I almost died. Not just a character, me, the real me, Mike thought, his voice barely a whisper in his mind. He paused, the horrifying truth settling in. This isn't a game. This is a trial. A mistake here means death, real death. Meanwhile, the raid was suffering devastating losses. One of the tanks died, unable to withstand the damage from a combo of attacks. His body didn't vanish in a puff of light like in a typical MMORPG. It remained lying there, stark and lifeless, eyes wide and staring. A faint blue smoke, like a soul evaporating, rose from him and dissipated into the oppressive air. "Tank down! Second tank forward! All DPS, accelerate the phase!" Groshgar roared, his voice laced with desperation. Miriam fell to her knees beside the fallen tank's body, her voice choked with grief. "He won't come back! He didn't manage to save his heart!" "What do you mean, won't come back?" Miriam looked up, her eyes filled with sorrow. "If you don't activate the preservation magic before death, you die forever. Not like in a game, not like a character." She paused, her gaze hardening. "People die here, real people. We've lost allies, loved ones." She looked directly at him, a silent question in her eyes. "Did you think this was just a game?" Mike clenched his fists, his jaw tight. His breathing slowly evened out, a new resolve hardening his features. There was no more confusion in his eyes, only determination and a simmering anger. The final mechanic of the phase began. "You cannot hide from your guilt," the Mother of Shadows hissed, her voice slithering through the air. In the center of the arena, an image of fear materialized, a terrifying projection of each participant's worst memory. Everyone's was different. For Mike, it was a scene from his old office. He stood at his computer, his boss humiliating him in front of the entire team. Back then, he had remained silent, unable to respond, forced to endure it. The image, speaking in his boss's cruel voice, taunted, "You are nobody, just a quiet observer, not a hero, not a leader. You hide behind others' shields." A surge of pure fury ripped through Mike. He roared, rushing into the hateful projection and attacking his fear head-on, burying his blades deep into the boss's projected face. It dissolved instantly, crumbling like ash. Opponents who failed to overcome their personal images received debilitating debuffs and weakening. A deep rumble shook the dungeon. The Mother of Shadows was enraged. "Almost there! Mike, are you with us?" Groshgar yelled. "I'm here," Mike replied, his voice quiet but resolute. He activated all his remaining abilities, explosions of light and shadow erupting around him. With a burst of speed, he leapt onto the boss's back, deftly avoiding crushing claw strikes, and plunged his blade into a pulsating eye. The Mother of Shadows let out a deafening roar of agony. It was a total, unyielding assault, and everything froze. The Mother of Shadows, letting out a final muffled breath, crumbled to dust, slowly disappearing in shimmering streams of light and shadow. But she was not truly dead. This was only a fragment, the first projection of her power. Another, greater battle surely awaited them. The remaining players fell to their knees, utterly exhausted. Out of the 25 who began, only 17 survived. Mike stood up, breathing heavily, his body aching, but his resolve firm. He walked over to the lifeless body of the fallen tank, gently closing his eyes. "We call them the departed," Miriam said softly, her voice filled with a quiet grief. "They crossed their line and remained here, in eternal shadow. He died because we made a mistake, because I made a mistake," Mike stated, his voice raw. "Then you won't repeat it. That is the path of a raider," Miriam replied, her gaze steady. In the distance, a second portal shimmered into existence, opening wide. A new battle lay ahead. Groshkar looked at the remaining survivors. 3 are gone, 5 are wounded, but the path is open. Those who want to continue, into the portal. The rest, you can stay. He looked directly at Mike, his eyes piercing. This isn't for those who just want to play anymore. Mike walked towards the glowing portal. He looked around at the faces of his comrades, his own face tense with determination, but calm. "I'm going all the way," he stated, his voice firm. He stepped into the blinding light. Chapter 5: The Final Battle. Before them lay a throne room, a vast, twisted space that seemed to have been turned inside out. The walls pulsated with deep, oppressive shadows, as if darkness itself were alive and breathing. The floor was a smooth, glass-like surface, and beneath it a cosmic abyss stretched out, filled with ancient skeletons, faintly blinking constellations, and shimmering fragments of forgotten memories. Above, the sky was a rupture, torn open and pierced by a swirling magical vortex. In the very center of this chilling chamber stood the Mother of Shadows in her true, horrifying form, a gigantic composite figure, seemingly made of the bodies of countless fallen raiders. She possessed 6 faces, each one a chillingly familiar visage from the past of one of the players present. Around her ancient artifacts, the seals of dreams revolved slowly, imbued with dark power. "This is her," Groshkar stated, his voice grim. "The end, or a new beginning." The remaining team was silent, their collective breath held. Only 12 people remained now, utterly exhausted, their bodies bruised and scarred, but their eyes burned with an unyielding resolve. Mike stood among them. His armor was worn, a dark, jagged crack marring the chest plate from the previous brutal battle. Yet he was calm. His hands firmly gripped his sabers, their hilts worn smooth by his relentless use. His face was profoundly different now, not the confused young man he had been at the very beginning of this nightmare. He had become part of this world, part of the raid. The battle began. The Mother of Shadows rose higher above the arena, her monstrous form casting vast, shifting shadows. The very floor of the chamber seemed to vanish, and the battle was now fought within a volatile, pure magical space. Each player found themselves confronting their own reflection, a doppelganger that attacked them specifically, embodying their deepest fears. The world seemed to split, each player fighting their own personal line of fear. Mike found himself utterly alone. Before him stood himself. Only this reflection was different, a coward, a silent observer, the part of him that always retreated. "You're not a hero," the shadow Mike sneered, his voice a distorted echo of his own. "You've just gotten caught up in an illusion. Do you think this will give you meaning?" Mike didn't answer. He moved silently, closing the distance, dodging a phantom strike, parrying another. And at the peak of his attack, he delivered an abyssal blade directly through the reflection's chest. "This is more than a game. This is a choice," Mike said quietly, his voice firm and unwavering. He paused, then added, "And I made it." A new powerful aura ignited around his body, a dark blue light with shimmering silver glints. The interface flashed with a new notification. "Skill unlocked, resolve beyond world. 100% damage at critical risk level, plus willpower, immunity to fear." He returned to the main combat zone, where the final, desperate phases of the battle were already well underway. One of the healers had fallen, leaving only Marianne, Groshkar, and 3 ranged damage dealers remaining. "Mike, Void Rift on you! Take her out of phase, now!" Groshkar yelled, his voice strained. Mike leapt onto the central platform, deftly avoiding the Mother of Shadows' crushing claw strikes, and activated every ability he possessed: Shadow Dash, Backstab, Abyssal Blade, and Strike from Reality. He soared through the air like a comet, cutting directly through the magical barrier that protected the Mother of Shadows, and plunged his blades directly into her true heart, a shimmering, pulsating time cluster in her astral body. A blinding flash erupted. Silence. The Mother of Shadows, letting out a final muffled breath, crumbled to dust, slowly disappearing in ethereal streams of light and shadow. In place of her grotesque throne, a portal opened, golden, framed by ancient, glowing runes. It pulsed softly, warmly, invitingly. Before the remaining raiders, the system voice materialized again, this time with a profound sense of finality. Congratulations, raid complete. Mortals, you have accomplished what was thought impossible for millennia. For your courage and will, you are granted the right of choice. Leave. Stay. A transparent table with names appeared before them. Some were already choosing stay, others were selecting leave. Mike stood, unmoving, his face calm, but in his eyes a storm of profound thought raged. He felt the immense weight of the choice pressing upon him. The mechanical voice in his head spoke again. If you choose to leave, you will awaken, in Boston, in your body, as before. If you stay, you will forget your past, but receive a new name and destiny here, in Ilmor. Miriam approached him, her gaze gentle. You know I'll stay, Miriam said softly. This is my home. But you can leave. You have a chance. Mike questioned, his voice filled with an almost desperate hope. And all this, is it real? Am I truly alive? Miriam smiled, a serene, knowing expression on her face. Does it matter if you feel alive only here? He remained silent, looking down at his hands, seeing them not as they once were, but as they were now. He remembered every battle, every searing pain, every fallen comrade. And then he remembered how he felt before, in his old reality. There I existed, Mike said, a profound realization in his voice. He paused, then continued. But here, I became someone. He took a decisive step towards the glowing portal. Everyone held their breath, watching him. He slowly raised his hand. The interface appeared before him, stark and clear. It presented a stark choice: leave or stay. His gaze lingered on the options, then he slowly raised his hand and pressed stay. The world of Ilmor awakened around him with renewed vibrancy. The golden portal shimmered, then slowly closed, sealing his choice. Above Mike's head, a new title, imbued with ancient power and recognition, appeared. Borderlander of Ilmor, Slayer of the Shadow. Miriam smiled, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. Welcome home, she said. Mike stood atop a towering citadel, looking out to the vast unfolding dawn of Ilmor. The wind played gently with his cloak, rustling the dark fabric. In the vibrant sky, new flickers of light and shadow, new distant threats could already be seen. The world lived on, the world waited. His own voice, a narration from a place beyond the immediate moment, spoke in his mind. I thought I was playing a game, but it turned out to be a trial. Not who I was, but who I became in battle. I am not just Mike, I am the one who chose to stay.